Namaskar, everyone. Today, it's a wonderful opportunity for me to discuss with the author of Devayani, uh, Mrs. Manjula Tekal ji. And this, I hope, is an opportunity for you who would be listening to this to get a bit deeper into the rationale behind this novel, but whatever that goes through when somebody writes a novel. So a journey of an author, a journey of a novelist. So Manjula Tekal ji, welcome and namaskar.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's a privilege.
So we will keep this as conversational and as casual as possible. But my first question, and of course the curiosity, is what is it like that made you select this particular topic for your novel project?
So I have always loved Mahabharata. Like that's a common factor for all of us. And when I read the story of Devayani in Mahabharata, it's kind of like, it's a stick figure kind of a story. It's very engaging nevertheless, but there are a lot of questions as to who this person is, how does she get married to Yayati, who's Yayati, all those questions. So if you delve deeper, you can stitch a cohesive whole when you read the same story from other Puranas. And you have a picture of Yayati as a flawed person, Devayani as a flawed person, and even Sharmishta as a flawed person. And they're all very human characters. And that is the first level of interest, how did these flawed people live their life and what exactly happened afterwards and stuff. And Devayani is very willful. She's very, selfish. She's very impulsive. She's got very poor impulse control. But with all that, she's got this core of loyalty. And she's an extremely beautiful person. And she forms great bonds, but she's not able to manage her relationships very well. So that itself is a story waiting to be told. And the circumstances under which she met Yayati are also very intriguing. So nobody claims to be dyed in the wool, very nice person or whatever. They're all extremely human characters, but with all that, there is a core of greatness about the whole thing. So that is something that I found very interesting. I'm not very sure whether all of this has been brought out in the novel, but that is what I set out to do. So, yeah.
And what is interesting is, we are, in some sense, we are all flawed characters.
Yes.
Like what Mahabharata essentially says is nobody is perfect other than that Parama Purushottam, and nobody is completely bad and nobody is completely good. It's kind of a mixture. And as you said,
Absolutely.
these are all flawed characters, but somehow, or must be a specific reason, we can only guess, and you might have actually researched more, that Mahabharata writer, composer, Vedavyasa found it worth to record it, to record it. And so related to that, my question, in searching, like in preparing for this novel, in terms of the seed material, like in terms of the vast ancient Indian narratives, what are some of the sources that you consulted for looking for this existing narration of Devayani?
Right. Obviously, the first go-to source is Mahabharata. And I also, for Shukracharya's backstory, Devayani's father, the Asura preceptor, Shukracharya's backstory, I refer to Devi Bhagavat Purana. And then there is Matsya Purana also, which carries the story of Mahabharata. In Padma Purana, there's a whole new story of Yayati, which I have not used, by the way. So every Purana, so what I have taken from the Puranas is what is more conducive to my version of Devayani. So essentially the story format, the essentials of the story are taken from Mahabharata and some Puranas. Those are my basic reference material.
Okay.
And go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, I was going to say when writing about historical characters, the challenge always is to imagine that specific time period, and therefore the development of a culture, science, technology, clothing, I mean, all various aspects, even the social mannerisms and social behaviors, like something that we see in the period films. For example,
Yes.
they will not use certain expressions. For example, if we say in our times, you are welcome, thank you, and you are welcome. If you go back 300 years, then nobody was saying you are welcome. So it's like you have to make sure that that expression doesn't come in,
Yes.
if it was a movie or something like this. So in terms of setting this story in a particular historical period, what were some of the challenges that you felt, or if you felt any challenges? And if you did feel, what were those?
Actually, essentially, it's been extremely challenging. In fact, let's go one by one, right? So I have this, Shrikant Talageri had this essay about what a novelist has to look for in that period. So he's got an essay. I actually took that down, and then I tried to conform to that as much as possible, to the point that he says that kumkum, turmeric, was not in use at that time. So I wanted to make sure, even in the cover page, that the kumkum is not used, which, by the way, it's very difficult to, even during the aarti and all that stuff, nobody puts the kumkum on Yayati's forehead, for example. And the bhasma, the yajna bhasma is what is typically being used at that juncture. And then I tried to use even sweetmeats and stuff like apupa and all that stuff. That is what is being used in the narration. And I tried to reimagine from Shrikant Talageri's geographical thing. The Asuras must have been in the northern Kashmir part. And then I tried to create the Gauri River. Basically, I'm not sure whether that is the truth. But I tried to reimagine that Shukracharya's ashram must have been somewhere there near the Gauri River, and the Panchkora, basically, today's Panchkora River must have been there. And I wanted to recreate the context for the Devasura war. And I tried to put, because there is a conflict about the rivers and dispute about the river waters and stuff, I wanted to put the Devas to the south of Asuras. There's also other things that, the Soma and all that stuff, because the assumption or the assertion that the Devas, the expansion from the Indian mainland, like Haryana, went westwards and the northwestwards because they were chasing the Soma, Soma plant. That's one of the assertions. So Soma plant is somewhere in the northern Kashmir, west of that kind of a region, right? So that kind of an expansion is also a kind of possible because of this particular assumption that the Devas must have been slightly to the south of the Asuras. And of course, I mean, you helped me place the capital of Yayati at Pratisthana and on the banks of Saraswati River. Okay. So all these things, No, all these things have been extremely.
Please go ahead.
No, these things have been extremely challenging, but a lot of fun to fit together. It's kind of like a puzzle piece, right?
Right. Well, and you are creating a baseline in some fashion, like, when people discover more things, and I mean, the narration of the novel is really the prerogative of the novelist, so that doesn't need to change, but it might even instigate people to do more research related to this time period.
That is my intention, actually.
So like, for example, Rupa Bhattiji would like what you just said. This is something new to me. Like you said, Asuras, you wanted to place Asuras in the north and Devas in the south. I said Rupa Bhattiji would like it, who works with me, and you might be familiar with some of her work. Is that in a astronomy context, the Rigvedic context, and I think she quotes, I can't even tell you what other Indic narratives, but like Brahmanas and whatnot, where she talks about how Asuras turn into Devas and Devas turn into Asuras.
Yes.
Or for
Yes.
example, Asuras are sometimes named as a Pura Deva, meaning the one who were Devas before, and something very interesting.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, go ahead. So you mentioned something about the referring to Srikant Talagiri's description somewhere about what can be seen culturally speaking, like kumkum and turmeric, like haldi and kumkum. So haldi cannot be used, or something he said of that effect.
Yes.
Maybe that time. Do you?
It was not in this.
Because why?
It was not in use at that time, is what he said. I mean,
oh, very interesting, very interesting. And I mean, again, not to drill you down, because that's really a question for him possibly. Like, is there a reason why it was not used at that time, or no? Okay, because see, some things came from I know Srikant Talagiri's some arguments related to some other things, such as like sabudana, like the tapioca or the potatoes. And I forgot what else, like chilies, and he emphatically says that they came from outside. Now we do know that some things came from outside. However, that's not to say that, say, for example, just because we did not know potatoes, like potatoes came from Peru, I mean, that's the understanding of it. That does not mean that we did not have any kanda before, like a suran and many others. So, I mean, or sweet potato or something equivalent. They always existed in a tropical land. They always existed, and that's why I was just curious, because turmeric, it's not, at least turmeric is not an import. I mean, turmeric is a very much a Indian and South Asian species. Yeah. And it definitely goes back in Ayurveda, but I don't know how far back that goes, so that's a very interesting thing. And so you have to chart your course through that. Now, for our audience, see, these days what is happening is, those people, of course, who read, but unfortunately, or I don't know, there are some advantages to it. Many people are just getting into watching something not more than 10 minutes and down to 5 minutes and down to 2 minutes, which means the chance of many of the people who might be listening to this knowing even the background of the story of a Devayani before they enjoy your novel. And of course, the background itself will be there. So in terms of like just giving a gist of the Devayani narrative, not necessarily what comes into your novel that we will come to in a minute. Now, if you have to explain a quick context of a Devayani and the different characters that you just mentioned to somebody in like 5 minutes, how would you summarize that story, and so that they understand the context? Let's say with respect to, say, Pandavas, I mean, or a Mahabharata. So, I mean, where does it fit? And that just kind of gives them some reference point to explore this further. So a summary of Devayani story, maybe from Mahabharata or wherever you select, in say 5 minutes, what would that be?
Okay. Devayani is the daughter of the Asura preceptor. Asura preceptor as in the Asura guru, the guru of the Asura clan, Shukracharya. At that time, at the time the story is set, there's a war between the Devas and the Asuras. And in the war, Devas are losing, Asuras are winning, because Shukracharya has this Mrita Sanjeevani mantra, using which he brings back the dead people to life. So Asuras cannot die, and Devas are, getting decimated. So at this juncture, the Devas actually decide they're going to send somebody to learn the Mrita Sanjeevani from amongst them, so that they can be at par with the Asuras. So they send Kacha. Kacha is the son of the Deva preceptor. So they send Kacha, and then they tell him, Indra pretty much tells him, he says, go be nice to Devayani, because Shukra is particularly fond of her. and he will not refuse her anything. So basically, Kacha comes down and then he's primed for playing Devayani. Devayani predictably falls in love with him. And then, she tries to be good to him. And then he plays her basically. And in the meantime, Asuras are kind of, very anxious about Kacha learning the Sanjeevani. So they try to kill him, and they try to kill him 3 times. And then each time, Shukracharya brings him back to life. The 3rd time, the Asuras basically kill him, and then they completely grind him up and then mix him in some drink, and then they serve the liquor to Shukra. Shukra consumes it. And then now Kacha is inside his body. And then Devayani comes to him crying, look, Kacha is not there. He can't be found. Can you please get him? So then he materializes, Shukracharya materializes Kacha in his own body. And then he says, where are you? And then turns out Kacha is inside his own stomach. And then, Shukracharya turns to Devayani. He says, look, if I have to bring him out, then I'm going to die. Now you have to decide who you want more. Devayani says, look, I can't live without you. I can't live without him. So please, bring him back somehow. Then, so at this point, he's in a quandary. So he decides he's going to teach Kacha the Sanjeevani. And then he teaches Sanjeevani. And then when he brings Kacha out, he's dead. But Kacha reapplies the Sanjeevani on Shukra. Right. And then he brings him back to life. Once the education is done, Kacha wants to go back home. He comes and tells Devayani that he's going home. Kacha says, Devayani says, marry me. Kacha says, now you're like my sister, because we are both born of, Shukra's body. I cannot marry you. So she is devastated. She's like, she tries to persuade various things and fails in the attempt. So he goes, and then she's completely devastated. And then at this juncture, there's a picnic. They go for a picnic with the Asura princess, that is Sharmishta, the king's daughter. They both, and then there's an altercation during the picnic. There's an altercation. They fight. They trade insults even about their respective parents and all that stuff. And then after that, Sharmishta basically pushes Devayani into a well and walks away. And then Yayati comes, rescues the girl. And when he's rescuing Devayani, he pulls her out by his, using his right hand, catching hold of her right hand. And then he pulls her out. And then Devayani says, you have to marry me now because you have held my hand. The Panigrahana, the first act of the marriage ceremony. So Yayati says, sorry, I can't marry you because you are the daughter of a Brahmin preceptor, and I'm a Kshatriya. I can't marry you. So it is supposed to be like, everybody marries upwards. The Anuloma marriage is like everybody marries upwards. So Devayani says, no, nothing of the sort. My father is going to approve the marriage. So in any case, there is some negotiation and then they get married. And Devayani says this juncture that I'm going away with Yayati. You, stop working for the Asuras because they have insulted me. They have pushed me. They have tried to kill me. So please, leave the Asura capital, come with me. And so promptly Shukracharya goes and then tells that he's leaving. And the Asura king says, look, please stay. We can't function without you. What is it that you want? So basically at this juncture, Devayani demands that Sharmishta become her servant. So both of them go. She takes Sharmishta to the Asura capital, to Pratishtana, Yayati's capital. And promptly, of course, Sharmishta falls in love with this guy, Yayati, and says, marry me. And Yayati says, no, I can't. By the way, he's being cautioned. Shukracharya would have cautioned him against such a move. So he says, no, I can't do that. And then Sharmishta says, you can't refuse a woman who comes to you with begging love from you, prema bhiksha, so to speak. You can't refuse me. Okay, so he marries her. And then he puts her in this Ashoka Pana. He puts her there. And then Sharmishta has 3 children. And by some accounts, Devayani has got 3 children. And by some accounts, 2 children. That's a little bit of a thing. In some stories, her child, Madhavi, is actually not her child. She's the daughter of an Apsara, so that's the variation. So any case, when Devayani discovers that Sharmishta has married Yayati, she goes back to her father and she says, look, you have to get me justice. She has cheated me. Immediately, promptly, Shukracharya curses Yayati to instant old age. So he becomes an old man, and then now he becomes a doddering old man. So he can't do anything. So he goes and begs each of his children for their youth. And give me your youth, and then I will enjoy the youth for a while, and then I'll give back my youth to you, and then you can give me back my old age. All the children refuse except Puru. He takes his old age, and then Yayati enjoys his youth for a while longer, and then realizes this is like not sustainable in the long run, and then goes back to him, and then returns his youth and goes off to Vanaprastha. That's the story, basically.
Okay. So anyone listening to it, and if they listened carefully, they will see the complexity, the interesting things. I mean, this is not just a love triangle, but even a quadrangle, or even more than that, more dimensions. And then the exchange of a youth. I mean, that can, whether you take it literally or metaphorically, that can go beyond the excitement people feel for things like Game of Thrones or any such modern day popular serials, right? So very interesting. And when you began, you started with a very interesting words. We said these are all flawed characters. And of course, the objective of Itihasa is to learn from other people's mistakes, and so like when the reason behind Itihasa, or reason behind reading biographies and autobiographies, is naturally to learn from their mistakes and some good lessons for us from their success and from their failures. If there are any specific lessons, that sort of the insights that you had as you wrote Devayani, and that's something that you may want to share with the audience, what would those be? The certain insights, certain lessons learned possibly from this entire Devayani episode.
It's been a lot of learning in many ways, actually. Okay, I'd like to interject one very interesting thing right here. So I read a few weeks back, after Devayani was published, a few weeks back, there was an article in Newsweek. And that was about how one company called Alpha something, I don't remember now, Alka Fest or Alka Hest or something like that. It's been founded by Stanford. The people, Stanford University neuroscientists and stuff. So basically they have founded this company, and the company basically is there. It harvests young people's blood, and the aim of the thing is to retard the youth, to slow down the old age of people. So apparently, young mice, they harvest blood from young mice, and it slows down the aging of brain of old mice, it seems. So they're trying to use that technology. And then they want to slow down the youth of people also. That's the purpose of the company. So here is a question, right? There's a lot of people who say that Yayati was like a lustful man, who's a horrible person. He kind of asked for youth from his own young people, young sons and all that stuff. But here is a parallel story where our own generation, right? They're harvesting young people's blood to retard old age, to slow down old age. So it brings back questions of medical ethics of today's times. You know, that I find it very interesting. I mean, same people who are even today, like, you know, when people are wrestling with medical ethics, the same people cannot be sitting in judgment of Yayati for asking for the same thing. I mean, here is a man who is being confronted with sudden old age, who wants to reclaim his youth. I mean, that's a natural response. How he deals with it is the next question.
Yeah.
You know, so I have tried to put that also in context. So I have created this mythical other person called Madhav, who happens to be his, close friend. And he also wrestles with the same thing. I mean, he also becomes old before his, time. And he wrestles with the same question. And then he decides that he's not going to ask his sons for youth from them, because he doesn't feel it is the right thing to do. Whereas Yayati goes ahead and then embraces that. And then he says, look, I want to do a few things before I can, become an old person. So for whatever it is worth, I mean, I kind of like, put it to the reader or whoever it is, that if confronted with that kind of a temptation, will we not give in to that? And what will be our justification? And,
well, and at least in this case, I mean, we can question Yayati's desire to whatever he wanted to do, but he asked for a help, so to say, as opposed to, like in this case, I mean, what you just said, I don't remember the medical terms, but there is it's well known that the certain either certain chemicals, certain hormones that can be harvested from young ones, and they are also used. I mean, this is like a under the carpet that happens, that has been said worldwide. I mean, many of the rich old people, and the way they look young, and I mean, this is I don't think it's a conspiracy, it's kind of a well-known, the chemicals are well known, and they came into a very recent discussion of what was happening into that Bollywood and the child trafficking, and in that connection, if you have heard about it. So in this case, these are taken by a very much of a exploitation right now. I mean, we are talking about the ethics. In case of Yayati, based on what you're telling me, he asked his sons if somebody was willing to exchange in whatever format, whatever technology they might have access to, and they could do it. At least the narrative part, it's not objectively testable for us right now. In fact, with the Stanford research, it might become objectively testable, who knows? But he asked for it, and then he returned back, and that even that sophistication was there. In fact, just the parallel is with the missiles, or with the Astra and Shastra. We hear that in Rama's time, Ramayana times, or even Mahabharata times, that not only they could release it, but if not everyone, like Ashwatthama couldn't take the Brahmastra back, but Arjuna also had an ability to take the Brahmastra back. And I don't see that even with our sophisticated missiles today. Yeah, so that's I mean, one lesson, and I'm sure there are more, but I would encourage people to actually read the book and in some sense find these for themselves. So quickly, how long ago was this book published? I mean, I know it, but I just don't remember the exact timing of it. Like a couple of months, yeah.
Yeah, I don't even remember, but let's see. It just says 2021.
Right. But few months ago, right? 2 or 3 months ago. That's my guess, right? And so, well, I mean, so in the context, what I was curious is, this is too short a time from the time it's published, but what kind of feedback you are receiving, and if there is anything, I mean, you can share on both and pros and cons side, but anything that is exciting to share, like, you getting something that just made your day, or the different type of feedback, something that you may not have even thought while writing the novel, and now somebody sees that additional insight, I mean, anything. The field is open, but I just meant to say what kind of feedback you have received, and if you would like to share some.
Yeah, well, uh, yeah, there is a whole bunch of things actually. I have gotten mostly positive feedback. So a friend actually went ahead and then said, "Oh, this is the best thing I have read in a long time." That was very very happy for me. My aunt, my father's older brother's wife, she's well into her 90s now. She's 91 or something. She's actually rereading it for a second time, and that was like I was so thrilled about it. And she's like, okay, I have read the novel. Now I have to understand the context in which the novel is being placed. So I need to understand the rivers. I need to understand whatever the connectivity of the backstories and stuff like that. And that is what I want to read it for a second time. So, and she even said something like, "Oh, if I had read something like this during my youth, it would have been awesome." And that really was very happy for me. And the third extremely thrilling kind of a feedback came from Dr. Bhairappa. And he is my hero for very, very long time. And he also offered a lot of criticism. But let me tell you the good things first. He said it was an excellent novel. And then he also said the language in which it's been delivered is very nice. That is the thing. And then his criticism was that Kacha loses his relevance after the first encounter. So you have to make him a little more relevant. He just is a doll sitting out there. So you have to make him a little more relevant in a retelling is what he suggested.
Right.
The other thing was even more deep. He basically says, this was like, oh, I mean, I wish I had gotten it even while I was writing the novel. Maybe I should use it at some other point in time. He said, Puru actually experiences old age. With old age comes a lot of wisdom. I mean, there is passion of youth versus the wisdom of old age. But even after he comes back to youth, you have to show that he has gained a lot of insights into life. That is an artistic chance that I have missed.
Okay.
According to him, that's what he suggested.
Right. So you mean once he regained his youth with that exchange, and then came back and gave it back, and now what are his lessons learned, or some of the life lessons, life insights that Yayati would have had that are useful to others. It's what is interesting is that Yayati, in that story that you mentioned, he might be seen as very focused on the personal desires, whatnot. But many times when a very light reference to Yayati comes in many places, he's compared with somebody else. He's brought in as a reference as a very magnanimous person. Like when you get those references later on in Mahabharata or any other literature. And so that's those people who don't know the story of Yayati may not exactly know what that is.
He's supposed to have performed many Ashwamedha yagas and, and then he's also he's sitting as a guru to his grandsons, and then he imparts life lessons to them. It comes in Mahabharata itself. So a man who has lived to his fullest, who's achieved a lot in a position of actually attaining Swarga, and then coming back and then imparting lessons to his grandchildren, cannot be too trivial a person, cannot be like some drunk person who's who's gone through life, enjoying women, enjoying, he can't be too trivial a person. So he obviously has to be some kind of a gray character. He's got some positives, he's got some negatives. So that is the thing. And even more so, the context of it all, for example, according to your research, it puts the timing of the novel way back when, tens of thousands of years. And then the courses of rivers have changed since then. And then it's very interesting to know, I mean, Saraswati does not even exist today. But even during Mahabharata's times, the Saraswati did exist. And Yayati's capital was on the the banks of Saraswati. And there is so much other context also, like, Manu is supposed to have been deposited somewhere, when he came out of the Pralaya deluge. He's supposed to have been deposited somewhere, like, Manali, that's what so Manvalaya is, there is a temple there of Manu. And most of us, I did not even know about it. It's like part of my learning, I learned all these things when I was reading up for this novel. So these are all things that are so easily missed. The problem also with novel reading, while I am a very passionate, proponent of the novel, the format of novel, because it makes learning easy. You talk about, you read about all these people, that they're like very interesting characters. You read about all these people. Suddenly, like, there's a backdrop to it, what must have happened to make them react the way they react. One more thing, what is the geographical reality of those times? So why did the wars even take place to begin with? Those are speculative things, that put you on a road to learning, if you will.
Right. So it's like a case study, that is kept open, they're open ends. Like, we have to read between the lines with whatever level of intellect and understanding individual may have. And everyone can get lessons from it, right? Everyone can get lessons from it. Yeah. And so now that you have got the feedback, and naturally you said, it would have been nice if you'd have got the feedback even halfway. That's what we always desire. But it's never the end. This is just the beginning. So maybe my last question to you, what is in the pipeline? So, this is like, I don't assume that this is the first and the last novel and you say, okay, I have done what I wanted to do. And
I would hope not.
Yeah. So what's in the pipeline? What's, to the extent you want to share with the readers?
I have, right now I have Ajaya, the, Chandrasekhar Azad's biography in Kannada that I'm translating to English. That's been written by Babu Krishnamurthy. It was first published in 1974. And I don't believe that the revolutionary history of India has been, written about too much. Of course, these days I'm realizing, like, I am part of an ecosystem. Actually, when I first, started writing, it was like, oh yeah, I am very happily bilingual. That's the way I like to see myself. I studied in Kannada medium schools, you see. So most of my Mahabharata and Purana reading is all in Kannada. But that being said, I was like, oh yeah, I can read, my Kannada reading will give me probably a lot more material. So that is why I want to do all this. And happily, I have discovered so many people who are doing similar work. And then it's kind of like, it's been very nice actually to get to know them. A lot of people like Indic today ecosystem. There is Shiv Kumar, there is Abhinav Agarwal, there is Sai Swarupa Iyer. And there's a whole slew of writers who are writing about, like, all this revolutionary history and various other things. It's like amazing. Writing, I think, is taking off right now. So anyway, happy to be amidst all these extremely talented people. And what else do I have to say? Anyway, I'm going away from the topic.
Yeah. No,
so
no,
I have to.
No, you. Okay, so that's one. Like, but that is a translation. Any specific, either any genre, novel or otherwise, that you are working on besides, say, translations, or something? What should we all look forward to as your next work?
I'm writing a novel on Madalasa.
Madalasa, there we go. Okay.
Yeah. So it's I'm stuck somewhere in between because I'm in between a lot of editing and stuff. I am also, like, part of this group which is doing a bunch of short stories for Indic Today. And I have written a short story on Damayanti. It's being curated by Indic Today, and Shiv Kumar is my editor.
Okay. Very good. And well, no, that's great. I think one last question in terms of the availability of the Devayani, it is available through Amazon. Is that correct?
It's available through Amazon.com. It's also available on GarudaBooks.com.
Garuda book, because Garuda published it, right? Garuda publication is published it. So at Garuda.com and also Amazon. So that's how people can easily access it, whether they are it doesn't matter where they are, anywhere in the world they can access it. Is that correct? Like in America and whatnot? Okay.
Frankly, I don't know the shipping thing in Europe and all that stuff, but in the US and in in India,
yeah,
it's on Amazon.com.
Right. No, very good. Well, thank you for your time. Also, I would like to thank you and the co-conspirator like Narendra ji, who's helping you like sort of look at the second one. So thank you for the work that you are doing. And from a very selfish point of view, I would say the translation of my When Did the Mahabharata War Happen in Kannada. And I'm so thankful and grateful to Narendra ji also for a simple reason that when you send me the translation, I look at them and I say, oh, they look great. But to me, they just look great, like a painting, because unfortunately with my limitation, I cannot read it. So thank you.
Hopefully there'll be somebody who will actually go through it and then say, oh yeah, it's great. And, understand both the English and the Kannada versions.
Right. So thank you very much, and all the best with, of course, the book Devayani, but also all your future projects, including the Madalasa, and I'll be certainly looking forward to it. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Namaskar, Manjula.
Thanks. Namaste.